So I guess I wanted to bring this up because it's kind of it's going on everywhere and everyone's talking about it. And do you ever been in a situation where so many people around you are celebrating and the reasons for celebration are kind of fair and you get it, but you don't share that celebration because you're like, no, this isn't necessarily a good thing. That's how I feel about this whole impeachment thing. That is how I feel right now. And the last time I felt, I kept having this memory. So in 2016, on election day, I was performing at a college near Seattle, Washington. So that night, I wanted to go somewhere to watch the debate. I had a friend in town too, and we were looking to go somewhere. My friend had voted for Hillary. And another friend of mine, also, actually, I don't know who he voted for, but I'm assuming he probably voted Hillary. And there was an event going on. There were two big events in town. One was a Trump event. One was a Hillary event. I didn't feel at home in either one, but my friend was going to go to the Hillary event. My other friend also voted for Hillary. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go to this event. I'll watch the results there. And, obviously I'd rather be there than at a Trump event. So I'm just going to watch the results. And I'm not looking to argue. I'm not looking to have any discussions. I just want to see what's going to happen here because I was not thrilled that night for a number of reasons. I knew that no matter who won, I was not going to be happy. And there were going to be a lot of hurdles that existed for different reasons, no matter who won. And so I was just sitting there. And they called the West Coast early. When they call the West Coast early in an election, and keep this in mind in 2020 and going forward, and by they, I mean, kind of the corporate media where we were watching the results in time on a big screen. When they call the West Coast early, that means pretty much it's more or less guaranteed the Republican's going to win. Because when they call the West Coast early, the West Coast is going to be blue. Okay, Washington, Oregon, California, it's going to be blue. Everyone knows that. And there's a fair amount of points in those three states, especially in California. So when you call it early, you're trying to maintain the horse race thing so people don't tune out. If you just called it in real time and it was clear the Republican was going to win, people would just stop watching. You're the corporate media. You want people to watch as long as possible, especially because this is the equivalent of your Super Bowl moment. This is the election, the presidential election. So when they call the West Coast early, that means the Republican's going to win. They called the West Coast early. And I actually said out loud, Trump won. And when I said Trump won, it was to a chorus of cheers from a room full of Hillary Clinton fans. And I'm looking around and I'm like, do you guys... Is this the first election you've ever watched? Is this the first one? Everyone's cheering. I mean, it was kind of a weird poetic moment because everyone was cheering. After I verbally said out loud, Trump is going to be president, a room full of people who didn't want to see Trump be president, which that was something I had in common with everyone there. I didn't want to see Trump be president either. I was sort of just rock meets hard place, dude. By the way, to add insult to injury, the one friend who I was meeting there, he didn't show up. He had a thing with his kid. So I was just there to see my friend. He didn't even show. I was like, I should have just went to a bar or something. But anyway, it's no big deal. I did have a funny moment because they had a tip jar with a picture of Hillary's face. So it was Hillary's face with a bunch of dollar bills underneath it. And I'm like, they didn't think that one through. Anyway, so that's kind of how I feel right now with all this impeachment stuff where, I share the fact that Trump is terrible. He is. He's the GOP, by the way. The worst thing you can do, Trump is the GOP. Policy after policy, he is the GOP. He just talks meaner. So I share the sentiment that Trump is awful. It nauseates me that Trump is president. I threw up that night, by the way, in the hotel room, just reflecting on everything. realizing what was going to be happening, realizing that Donald Trump was president of the United States, or what was going to be in January. I went to the bathroom and I vomited that night. And then got called a Trump sympathizer for the next 3 years and counting. But I threw up that night. I literally vomited, and it wasn't something I ate. And but with all this impeachment stuff, I feel that way again, where I'm just like, this is not going to make anything better. This is purely a symbolic action. So first of all, for there to be any consequences, for there to actually be any consequences, people forget that Bill Clinton was technically impeached by the Congress. Like, people don't even remember that. Like, there are times where, like, I'll forget it, and I'll be like, was he actually? And, like, yeah, the House technically impeached him, but then the Senate voted to take no action. So it's just something on their resume, more or less. And yeah, it's shameful, sure. But that's about it. So I don't understand any of these cases. I don't see how this works out politically. First of all, if you give the GOP a chance to distance themselves from Trump, and they do, that's the worst thing you can do, because people are starting to get a little more wary of Trump. Secondly, this is just political theater, because the chances of the Senate going along with anything that have consequences, you're going to need 20 Republicans in the Senate. It ain't going to happen. So this is purely a symbolic action. Who is this a symbolic action by? This is a symbolic action by Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, people who have used a despicable president. Donald Trump is a despicable president. No one's disputing that. But these people, Adam Schiff especially, that guy is not a good guy. I know we live in a world where you need a good guy and you need a bad guy. And when you have the message of, hey, there are no good guys in this scenario, it's not often greeted with open arms. I get that. But Adam Schiff has used the fact, I refer to him as Adam Griff, which is appropriate. He's used the fact that people are hurting. The Trump administration is hurting people every day. Adam Schiff has used that for his own political capital. You see suffering people, and you're a public official, and you see an economic opportunity for yourself. And that's the good guy? That's the resistance? That's what Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi are doing. This is theater. A couple focus groups told them this will make them look good politically. This is not about some conversation with, you look at that transcript, it's going to be tough for them to prove anything. In fact, let's take a look. So Trump impeachment inquiry, here's what's going on. Nancy Pelosi, yesterday, they're going to launch a formal impeachment inquiry. So here's the Ukrainian transcript. Here, hold on. They have Biden here. I would like you to do us a favor. So here's the thing people are getting excited about. I'll read it to you. I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation in Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike, I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server. They say Ukraine has it. There are a lot of things that went on, the whole situation. I think you're surrounding yourself with some of the same people. I would like to have the Attorney General call you or your people. I would like you to get to the bottom of it. As you saw yesterday, that whole nonsense ended, blah, 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 goes on about Russiagate. And then he brings up Biden here. Let me try to find that part. And then when the Ukraine president was asked about this, I'm having a hard time finding the Biden part, but it was basically more of the same. I mean, you have to actually have a verbal quid pro quo in most cases. And, they're going to be able to spin this, they being the Trump people, they're going to be able to spin this to say, well, it's up to the president does have an obligation to uncover corruption. They'll be able to spin it that way. That's what Rudy Giuliani's already trying to do. So it's like, unless you had well, if this, then this, or if you don't do this, then this, which that's not really in this transcript, it's going to be hard for them to really prove anything. It's going to be hard for them to really have some smoking gun. So this is political theater. This is political theater because they think it's going to make them look good, and I don't see it making them look good. And, one thing I saw from people on Twitter is they're like, well, this will rile up Trump's base. I think that is true for part of Trump's base. But I also think a lot of people who went with Trump not because they thought he was a great candidate or even a good guy. They went with Trump because they were tired of the status quo in Washington. And they took their chance on him. The way to get those voters to vote for somebody else, first of all, who a lot of them support? Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard. Those are the people who are able to connect with unlikely voters, Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. The way to get them is not by doing more Washington political theater as usual. That's not the way to get them. Because again, you're not going to have, the Senate has to rule on any consequences for a sitting president. The House can just say, well, technically you're impeached, but then the Senate can just say, yeah, but we're not going to push forward with any charges. We're not going to bar, and they can have a separate vote saying, well, this person can't run for office again. But again, once again, you need the Senate. They need at least 20 Republicans. It's not going to happen. So this is all just political theater. Lucy, hi. You've been missed. And then the idea of President Pence. Oh my God. Like, can you even... Like, Trump's incompetent, Pence is not. They're as equally despicable policy-wise. Trump's incompetent, Pence isn't. And then if you allow yourself... Trump continues to shoot himself in the foot. The only reason he's as popular as he is because of how ridiculous the resistance has been. Because people just see that nonsense, and they're like, this is ridiculous. If you actually call Trump out on all the promises he didn't keep, the fact that he promised to be a non-interventionist, he's not delivering on it at all. He's ramping up tensions around the world. He's been dropping drones. He just bombed pine nut farmers in Afghanistan. He just did that recently. He said he was going to help out workers. He didn't. He did nothing for them other than saying a couple nice things. Same thing Obama did. Talking nice, doing nothing action-wise. He said he was going to give everyone health care. His health care plan took health care away from millions more people. He doesn't even believe in climate change. Doesn't believe in it. If Democrats called him out for all these things and actually had a real opposition, Bernie Sanders could be our next president. But instead they're focusing on this, where it's not going to go anywhere in the Senate. It's just, and people are celebrating because Trump is awful. Trump is awful. When people are like, well, they're going to impeach him. And whenever people make the argument, well, it's saying that nobody's above the law. Whenever you make the moral argument for impeachment, I tune out. I'm sorry. I just tune out. Whenever you say, well, it's making a statement that nobody is above the law. No president is above the law. First of all, every president in my lifetime has been above the law. So I'm sorry. I just don't buy that with your little theatrical act for impeachment. Second of all, you know what? You know my experience with impeachment in my lifetime. You know what it is? You can be cornered about an affair and not tell the truth about it. You can be impeached for that. I'm not saying Bill Clinton wasn't absolutely disgusting. He was and still is. But I saw that happen. And then there was a bona fide war criminal, an out and open lying war criminal who took us into an illegal war based on lies and deception in cooperation with the corporate media. And I saw a congressperson from Ohio named Dennis Kucinich bring about all the reasons why this president should be blatantly impeached. And it was met with silence from his colleagues. Nancy Pelosi was against it. So that's what I've seen when it comes to impeachment. So I'm sorry if you're going to tell me that impeachment is a moral issue. There's no evidence supporting that, none whatsoever. That entertains some fantasy that there is some respectability in our system, and I would argue there is none. So whenever you say, well, it's making a statement, that it's symbolic, it's making a statement. No, it's not. It's a political action. That's all it is. I do not buy the moral case for impeachment when you see how it's unfolded in my lifetime and in the past. So, and strictly from a political standpoint, I don't see how this will benefit anybody. I mean, except Trump. I mean, it kind of puts things in chaos or what have you, but it's not going to win over unlikely voters. It's not, and that's what you need. It's not going to, the people who are opposed to Trump, they're already not voting for him, obviously. So you don't need to, you don't need to win them over. And the portion of his base who is just hardcore with him, it's just going to, it's just going to rile them up even further. So there you go. And sometimes I feel like I'm the dude spoiling the party. Like I see people, and I know I'm preaching to the choir right now. Like I know you guys get it. But there's so many people that it's like their heart's in the right place. They realize Trump's terrible, and I agree that Trump's terrible, and they really feel like someone's gonna do something. And it's like, it's so hard when you're coming from the perspective of there's no good guys in this. Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, they're grifters. They're not good guys. I mean, in some ways, they're just as despicable as Trump in many ways because they're seeing an investment opportunity, a profit motive, especially Adam Schiff. That guy is as corrupt as they get. People are hurting. Children are in cages. We're not doing anything about a climate catastrophe. And you see an opportunity to enhance your political career. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Man, sometimes you feel like you're just alone screaming into a well. And you're just like, am I the only one? So friends and colleagues of mine, very intelligent people are just cheerleading this. And I'm like, you don't see how this would probably hurt politically. Yeah, like this is for sure going to hurt politically. I don't see one scenario where this works out well, other than for a couple individuals looking to benefit themselves. This does not help people who are opposed to Trump. And I say this as a person who is opposed to Trump. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our